Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Alien invasion. A tiny creature was just discovered in Russia that has experts completely baffled. At first glance, it looks like an alien, like the corpse of an extraterrestrial that was ejected from its flaming ship as it crash-landed. The weird organism is very small, only about an inch long, and was found in the town of Sosnovyy Bor by a local woman who went swimming in the river. According to the local television news report, the woman, named Tamara, thought she had found a mutant chicken embryo. The creature has an elongated skull, it's strangely shrunken and misshapen, and has taloned limbs. The creature was so bizarre that not even local scientists could identify it. Biologist Yegor Zadarev from the Krasnoyarsk Institute of Biophysics said it definitely wasn't a type of fish or a bird. The skull was unlike anything experts had ever seen, and it didn't appear to have wings or even really a neck. This strange little monster was taken away for analysis, and that was the last we ever saw of it. Nobody knows if it was taken to a secret underground bunker or a government laboratory. All we know is that a woman found some kind of tiny alien in the river, and it was taken away to be studied. What do you think it was? Let us know in the comments below. Number 9. The Roman Giant. The first ever skeleton with gigantism was discovered buried in Rome. The giant skeleton was found in 1991 during the excavation of an ancient Roman cemetery. He lived in the 3rd century AD, during a time when most average men were under 6 feet tall. And yet this man was 6 feet 8 inches and would have towered over every other Roman citizen as a frightening giant. Researchers say he likely suffered from gigantism, an extremely rare condition that affects only 3 out of 1 million people worldwide. It's caused by the pituitary gland forcing a person to grow abnormally large. There have been 2 other giant skeletons found, one in Poland and one in Egypt, and researchers suspect they had gigantism as well. However, study leader Simona Minozzi from the University of Pisa says the Roman specimen is the only clear case of gigantism. The team from the university investigated these skeletal remains and found skull damage consistent with a pituitary tumor. This could have been what caused an overproduction of growth hormones. They also found disproportionately long limbs and evidence that the bones were still growing even into adulthood. The person most likely died between the ages of 16 and 20, likely from cardiovascular disease and respiratory issues. While some scientists say the giant Roman was nothing but a medical anomaly, others say he is evidence of an extinct species of massive human, real giants who lived 2,000 years ago. Number 8. Markawasi. Markawasi is a mysterious plateau high in the Andes Mountains, near the bank of the Rimac River. The mountains here rise 13,000 feet above sea level, and the whole place is an enigma. Markawasi was first investigated during the 1950s by local experts, who found hundreds of bizarre shapes carved into the rocks. Some experts say the shapes are natural formations caused by erosion, while others believe the rocks were shaped by human hands. Some call Markawasi a stone forest because of all the towering geological formations. Granite rocks found here resemble human faces, distinctive religious symbols, and some look like animals. The region is also dotted with ancient tombs, mysterious ruins, and over 50 pre-Columbian structures that have been reduced to piles of rubble. Almost everything here remains a mystery. Some claim the plateau is rich in healing energy, while others say it's a meeting place between humans and extraterrestrials. To make things even stranger, some of the crumbling ruins appear to have doorways that are only about 3 feet tall, suggesting they were occupied by tiny, unknown beings. It's never been confirmed, but there are a lot of people who think Markawasi was a high-altitude village of minuscule creatures no taller than 2.5 feet. It could have been a type of primitive human, but it could have also been an entirely unknown species, possibly extraterrestrial. Number 7. The Missing Foot. A missing foot in Indonesia may just be flipping everything we know about human history on its head. There is a huge cave in Borneo and the remote Indonesian jungle that was occupied by humans 31,000 years ago. The cave is massive, with a large main cavern about the size of a cathedral. And it was in this cathedral-like cavern that a team of scientists spent 11 days excavating a skeleton that was carefully buried. But there was one piece that was mysteriously missing: the left foot. It wasn't until the researchers inspected the nub at the bottom of the left leg that they realized what had happened. The foot had been amputated. Researchers found bone growth over a clean cut on the lower leg, suggesting a successful amputation. The reason the discovery is so crazy and could change history is that it's the earliest amputation ever found, 20,000 years earlier than any other. Researchers learned the skeleton belonged to a child, likely 9 or 10 years old, when they had their foot amputated. But they lived for another decade, until they were almost 20. Tim Maloney from Griffith University in Queensland, Australia, says the discovery essentially rewrites the known history of human medicine. Humans were believed to have been nomadic hunters and gatherers until about 10,000 years ago. But 31,000 years ago in Indonesia, they were already practicing advanced surgical techniques. When would they have had the time to learn how to perform surgeries if they were busy hunting and gathering? It's almost as if humans had a sophisticated medical knowledge and the skills to match long before the Neolithic farming transition. But where did they learn these skills, and how did they develop the tools to successfully cut someone's limb off? That was almost always a death sentence due to infection and trauma. So this surgery remains a mystery. Number 6. Ancient nanostructures. In 1991, some extremely strange artifacts were found in Russia, deep in the Ural Mountains. The artifacts were small, shaped like coils, and almost looked like small pieces of machinery. These strange artifacts were made about 300,000 years ago and appear to be evidence of a culture capable of creating nanotechnology. The objects were first found by workers searching for gold in the mountains. They uncovered coils, spirals, shafts, and other tiny components that appear to have once been part of a machine. The artifacts were clearly manufactured, with the biggest being 1.18 inches. The only thing they really resemble are miniature components found in the most advanced pieces of nanotech around today. Some of the objects are made from copper, but others are made from tungsten and other materials. Everything about this discovery is confusing. Some experts have suggested these small objects were scattered across the mountains during test rockets launched from a Russian space station. However, that most likely isn't the case. The components are far too old. They were found under the surface between 10 and 40 feet, in layers of geological stratus upwards of 318,000 years old. To this day, nobody knows how the artifacts were made or where they came from. Ancient Origins reports that some believe that the coils prove the human race enjoyed a sophisticated level of technology in the Pleistocene era, while others say that the findings are the work of extraterrestrials. Number 5. What happened to Neanderthals? For 350,000 years, Neanderthals were the dominant humanoid species throughout Europe and Asia. They dominated the landscape up until about 40,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens came out of Africa and started spreading throughout the rest of the world. This is unlikely to be a coincidence. The evolution of modern humans almost immediately caused the destruction of the Neanderthals. What scientists have been trying to figure out for decades is why this happened. Now it looks like ancient weapons discovered in old caves in Europe could hold the answers to questions we've been asking for decades. These new discoveries could change the way we see the history of prehistoric people. During the reign of the Neanderthals, there were a few other hominid species around as well. There were Denisovans in Asia and Homo floresiensis in Indonesia. But we know more about Neanderthals because they were the most prevalent. For example, many human populations alive today have up to 3% Neanderthal DNA. Some speculate Homo sapiens bred so much with Neanderthals that we basically morphed into one species. Others speculate our enhanced aggression led us to violently eradicate the entire Neanderthal species. Scientists from the University of Bologna in Italy recently analyzed weapons used by Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. They specifically examined a period of roughly 3,000 years when these two populations likely coexisted. What they found particularly interesting was that Homo sapiens in Italy had a very specific type of technology they used. They had something the Neanderthals did not: the arrow. It's very possible that Homo sapiens developed projectile weapons way ahead of Neanderthals, and they used this advanced technology to kill off the competition. Number 4. Sailing to America. There are so many coastal archaeological sites in North America that it would blow your mind. Professor Matthew Deloriers from the California State University has discovered 15 early sites along the west coast of America, some of them dating to over 13,000 years old. These archaeological sites were some of the first places the early coastal people lived in North America. But just how is this discovery supposed to change the world? These coastal settlements support a new and radical viewpoint of how people came to America. Up until now, archaeologists had a one-track hypothesis. They all believed there was a gap in the glaciers far to the north, and that early humans migrated from Europe and Asia into Canada across a land bridge over the Bering Strait. This was estimated to have happened roughly 16,000 years ago, and from there, the people moved down the Pacific coast all the way to Patagonia. If you think about it, that would have taken a lot of work. People would have walked all the way from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, seemingly for no other reason than to keep walking. But these coastal settlements are showing us something altogether different. It looks like humans may have sailed to North America in primitive boats, landed at random intervals up and down the coast, and then spread inland over time. Number 3. The Star Child Skull. A mysterious skull that was discovered supposedly has extraterrestrial origins. Researcher Lloyd Pye obtained the skull from a couple named Ray and Melanie Young from El Paso, Texas. They claimed the mysterious skull was found in 1930, roughly 100 miles from Chihuahua, Mexico, buried underground in a mine tunnel. The skull made its way to Texas, and in February of 1999, the couple handed the skull over to Lloyd. Lloyd immediately claimed that the skull belonged to an extraterrestrial human hybrid. The weird thing about the skull was that it was supposedly found lying next to a seemingly normal human skeleton. Yet the skull was anything but human, weirdly malformed, and looking as though it belonged to a being with an extra-large head. The skull was examined and found to belong to a child roughly 5 years old. However, the interior of the Star Child skull was extraordinary. It had an interior of 1,600 cubic centimeters, significantly larger than the average adult brain. In other words, the space inside the skull was already bigger than that of an ordinary human adult skull, and the brain inside would have been tremendous. The back of the skull was also flattened, and there were no frontal sinuses. Lloyd Pye was convinced the Star Child skull offered evidence of a hybrid child born from an extraterrestrial and a human female. However, of course, that's never been confirmed. Most medical experts believe the child was totally human and suffered from congenital hydrocephalus, which causes cranial deformations. Number 2. The Mysterious Shipwreck. In 1984, an American archaeologist claimed that he discovered a Roman shipwreck off the coast of Brazil. This shipwreck would have changed history as we know it, but in response, Brazil issued a national ban against underwater exploration. To take things even further, the archaeologist and treasure hunter Robert Marks accused the Brazilian government of sending their navy to dump a thick layer of sand onto the remains of the ship. They did this to hide the potentially world-changing discovery. The diver was banned from entering the country, and nobody was allowed to go snooping around for underwater treasure. But why would Brazil do this? It's because if Marx truly had discovered a Roman ship from 1700 years ago, it would have shifted the accepted history of Brazil. According to politicians, the Brazilian church, and everyone in charge, Brazil was discovered by Portuguese explorer Pedro Álvares Cabral in 1500. If Brazil was instead found by the Romans much earlier, it would be a big blow to nationalism. I don't know if all of this is true, but In the end, the ship was never fully uncovered, and Brazil denied any involvement in a cover-up. We still don't know if the Portuguese discovered Brazil first, or if it was the Romans. Number 1. Mystery Ancestor. Have you done a DNA test? Well, it turns out that you may be carrying around some mysterious DNA left behind by a very obscure ancestor. New research has identified genes in our DNA left behind by an ancient hominin species. According to Life Science, this ancestor could be Homo erectus, but no one knows for sure. It could be anything. Researchers say that the genome of that extinct lost species has never been sequenced. So, what was happening with our ancient human ancestors? Interbreeding among all the human species was going on for thousands of years, creating a complex web in our history. Biologists looked at a bunch of different factors and investigated the biological makeup of Neanderthals, Denisovans, modern humans, and modern-day Africans. The reason Africans were specifically chosen is because modern people in Africa don't have Neanderthal genes from the period of interbreeding about 50,000 years ago. When modern humans left Africa, they interbred with Neanderthals in Europe, but the humans who stayed in Africa never did, and so they didn't get the mixed Neanderthal DNA. What scientists discovered from this study is that there was some kind of mating event prior to humans leaving Africa and breeding with Neanderthals. There's an unknown ancestor, someone who nested their DNA into our own roughly 1 million years ago. However, scientists have no clue who this ancestor was. They don't know if it was Homo erectus or some other life form, but something is there in our DNA that is still a mystery. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and come back soon. Bye!